What's going on, YouTube? I've been doing some cooking with Sword Soul. This is a, let's say, more expensive list. I threw in the Chaos Angel, the QB. I left Dragite in there because it's just so good to have Dragite. I know a lot of people cut in Dragite, but I really like Dragite. Same thing with Chow Fang. Chow Fang is just so much better with Apple Dragon. So I've been kind of cooking in the kitchen here. And I got some replays for you. This is just against the bot, but it's got some like example hands, and like some of them are really crazy. So let's get into it. All right, this is me going second. Let's see what it looks like. Get this out of the way. So as we can see, I have two Apple Dragons in hand, a Small World, a Droll, and an Emergence. So not a terrible hand. And I draw into a Veiler, so I go into Emergence to grab my Longyuan, and I Small World away one of my Apple Dragons to grab Mo Yi. That's exactly why Small World's so good. If you get two of one thing, you can just Small World it away to grab literally whatever you want. Like, and that's not an exaggeration. Small World is so freaking good in this deck. Obviously the inherent negative of banishing a card from your hand and one from your deck is unfortunate, but it's just a whole nother way to search literally any card you want, including kaijus. So you know that it's really, I won't say it's optimal, but I will say that I like it so far. I will keep you up to date on that, but we'll continue. Alright, summon the Mo Yi, show the Longyuan, summon a token, summon Apple Dragon, go into Shishao, draw one, search one. I grab the Summit, because Summit's actually incredible. The more and more I play Sword Soul, the more and more I realize how freaking incredible Sword Soul Summit, Sacred Summit is. It's just, it makes your boards absolutely insane sometimes. So, and it's also a great follow-up if you want to not blow your whole load. So it is a good follow-up. Go right to the Barone. Notice this is before 5 summons. That may have actually been, the Barone might have been the 5th summon. Super easy way to get into Barone to protect yourself from Nib. Then you banish the Apple Dragon. Since you Synchro summon this turn to summon your Apple Dragon token, use Barone to destroy MST. Yeah, it was just a back row, whatever. Alright, pitch the Ashuna to summon the Longyuan. Go into Dragite with the Longyuan and the Apple Dragon token. And you're probably wondering why, but what I did was I banished the Ashuna to summon out Sathana, and then we can go into a Draco Berserker. And then I can Sacred Summit out the Shishao. So look what I had in my hand. So the hand was good. I'll say it was mostly gas, but look at this. I have Droll and Veiler in my hand. Of course, this is going second, so these are kind of useless. But if, let's say I broke his board and I couldn't like finish the job, I have Droll and Veiler to follow up, like to slow him down. Like, there's no way they're breaking this board while I also have Veiler and Droll in hand. I have a Banish, I have a Spell and Trap negate, I have a Monster negate. Barone has been used, but I mean, come on, like that's absolutely insane. And then obviously Draco Berserk goes up to 5,600, so nothing's beating over it. And that is the first one. So I think this is a pretty good replay. It's a 3-sync Dark Block. So hand's pretty cracked. I Small World away one of the Mo Yi to get an Apple Dragon in my hand. Summon the Mo Yi, do the basic things to summon Shishao. Obviously summon your Apple Dragon while you have a non-effect monster on the field, which is your token. Emergence into the Taya, so I can then pitch that Taya. So after I get Barone, I could... Okay, so what I did was go into Barone, use Apple Dragon and Shishao to go into Sinister Sovereign Longyuan. So I have a negate and 2 banishes. So far, 3 interruptions. And then I banished my Apple Dragon to go into the Apple Dragon token, which is a worm, to Sacred Summit into Taya to banish the Emergence, to use its effect to go into... So what I did here, Taya banish Emergence to summon a token. When Taya banishes Emergence, or I think Sacred Summit as well, you can level modulate your monsters by 1 level. So what I did was I lowered the token's level by 1. That way I could get into Yazi, which is a 7. And then I use Yazi. Well, I'm going to draw 1 with Sinister Sovereign. So I drew one Sinister Somnus since I synchroed a worm, and I Foolish Burialed a worm with Taya. And then I went to Chow Fang with a Dark Yang Zing. So that is a dark lock, so they can no longer activate dark monster effects. So I have a negate, 2 banishes, one of a spell and trap and one of a monster. They cannot activate dark monster effects, and I have follow-up of a Sword Soul Emergence to get me into a Taya, or if I draw into another worm I can grab a Mo Yi, and an Apple Dragon. That's a pretty wild first turn. Alright, so this is a big one. I think I set up a huge board of 4 Synchro monsters, big Synchro monsters, so let's go here. Alright, Longyuan, pitch the Blackout to summon the Apple Dragon. Go into Barone, so then you have a negate right off the bat. What did I do here? So then I summoned Taya to banish the Blackout, to summon a token. Blackout summons another token, so I have 2 tokens just from that one Taya. Go into Shishao. Taya, Foolish Burial, Ashuna, grab Sacred Summit. Then use Apple Dragon and Shishao to go into Sinister Sovereign Longyuan. Ashuna banish himself to summon Sathana, which is a level 4. To go into Berserker, because I'm locked into worms now. Ashuna locks you into worms. I draw one with Sinister Sovereign since I Synchro Summon a worm. Then I use Sacred Summit to summon back the Shishao. So I have an Omni Negate, a Monster Negate, a Monster Banish, and a Monster and Spell and Trap Banish with Burn. That is an absolutely insane board, and about the only out to this board is Dark Ruler no more. Even Ra Sphere mode only takes care of 3 of the monsters. So if they were smart, they'd probably get rid of Shishao, Barone, and Longyuan and leave the Berserker. But even then, I have Droll and a Banish. So that's still 2 interruptions. And Taya for follow-up. That's a wild board. Alright, so I believe this is Ashuna and Apple. So what I did here was this is, if you only have, imagine Gamma's not here, Summit's not here, Emerge's not here. All I use is Ashuna and Apple Dragon. That's it. Imagine these are the only 2 cards in my hand, and this is what you can get with, and this is why Apple Dragon's so good in Sword Soul. People always say it's a brick, it's terrible, it's not good in Sword Soul. Well, literally, if you only had Ashuna, you have nothing. But Ashuna plus Apple Dragon is actually not a bad end board. And this is going to show you why. So I special summon Ashuna, link it off into Monk, special summon the Apple Dragon, banish Ashuna, summon Sathana, Synchro into Horus, Apple Dragon banish to get my token, then go into Shishao to add the Blackout. And then I set the Blackout and pass turn. So what I got from 2 monsters, and not even, let's say, I mean, Ashuna is a really good monster, but it wasn't like a Sword Soul monster. Let's just say it was a very suboptimal hand. So if I only had hand traps and those 2 cards, I could still get a Monk, a Shishao, and a Blackout. So I have a Monster Negate and an interruption of 2 destructions. And then just imagine I had only other hand traps like Gamma or whatever. That's a very playable board. If you have interactions in hand and you still have 2 interactions on board, that's very good. That is even with just Ashuna and Apple Dragon. Alright, so this one I think I side an anti-spell just to... Or no, I'm sorry. The bot plays anti-spell. I'm going second, and this is how I worked around anti-spell. Not that I have any spells in my hand yet, but I do now. Alright, so I summon the Ashuna, go into Monk, you know what we done before. Summon the Ringowurm, summon the Taya, banish the Ashuna, summon a token, go into Baxia, Baxia bounce, Taya, dump Mo Yi. So what Baxia do is spin them in the deck, and Taya dump Mo Yi. Now I'm using Baxia's other effect to destroy itself and summon another, I believe it's a worm monster. Does it have to be worm monster? You can target 1 level 4 or lower monster, so it doesn't even have to be worm. So you can target 1 level 4 or lower monster in your graveyard and special summon it from the grave. So Mo Yi, what I did was I actually popped the Monk instead of the Baxius to get the most damage. And then I use Mo Yi to show that I have a card, Sword Soul card in hand, and I can Synchro off into the Barone with the Baxia and the Apple Dragon. And then I can Synchro summon into Yugioh, get my draw and my search, which is wild. Going to the emerge. This is going to be a wild hand. Holy crap. Going to the Chang Ying. And then Sinister Sovereign. And then I use Sacred Summit to pull out the Yugioh. Another wild board. And I have Ash in hand. I mean, the game's over. He's at 1,600 life points right now. And I have way more than that on board. Like Omni Negate, Monster Negate, Monster Banish from Grave and Field, and Protection, just a big boy. He lowers the attack of everybody else, and 2 banishes. It's just, I mean, it's completely freaking over after that. It's alright, and this one I go into Chaos Angel, and this is if you tech in Chaos Angel into Sword Soul, and I do suggest you do. I don't have it IRL because Chaos Angel is too much money and I have priorities. But I don't blame anybody for doing that. Alright, basic Sword Soul combos going on here. I think you totally get what's happening. Add hard, add back, so I can long you on. And I go into Chaos Angel, and what I had used was light monsters. I believe it was just light monsters, right? I wish I could go back. So it was Yugioh and Apple Dragon, I believe. So I was able to get it totally. All my synchro monsters are unaffected by monster effects. So I have all my synchros that I make from here on out are unaffected by monster effects because Chaos Angel is so good. And if you're going second, he lets you banish a card on the field. So that's also really good. Chaos Angel is an extremely powerful card. And if I could get him in real life, I would 100% get him. He's a very good card. Alright, we've been here before. I'm locked into worms now, I believe. Or maybe I'm not locked into worms yet. Oh, I just did some spicy tech. Okay. Alright, so what I did here was I used Monk and I believe it was a token. I wish I could rewind to see it. I think it was a Monk and token to go into Shaman. Shaman, pitch a card in your hand, and then you can revive a card in the grave, which I have Yugioh. So that will get me Chaos Angel, so I'm unaffected by monster effects. All my synchros are. A Monster Negate and 2 banishes, and I have a Droll in hand. The Gamma was useless to me because I had cards on the field, so no point in not pitching it. So that's a pretty strong board going first. Alright, here's another one. So I have Small World, Taya, Long Yuan, Ashuna, and Apple Dragon. This hand is literally nothing but gas. This is the gassiest hand I've ever seen in my life. This is like a worker from the bean factory coming home. He's just full of gas. Alright, looks like I'm going to be going second, which, if this was a real person, this would be unfortunate. They have no hand traps. But they lock me. This card prevents me from... While this card has XP, level 5 or higher monsters cannot be special summoned. So I cannot special summon level 5 or higher monsters with this card on the field. And I didn't know that at first. I think I start playing and I don't know what's going on. Like I think I was locked for some reason, and finally I read the card. Yu-Gi-Oh's Yu-Gi-Oh players' worst weaknesses are like reading cards and hygiene. So that's why it might look a little jank here for a second, but I figured it out. Here's where I'm like, token. And then I'm like, oh, why can't I Synchro? That's weird. I'll just small world away into a Vishuda. And I control a non-effect monster, so I can use Vishuda from hand. Vishuda is insane removal. People always forget that you can use these from hand. And obviously this is a bot, but you can use Ashuna, you can use Vishuda, you can use Adhara, all from hand if you control a non-effect monster. So I just use the shooter from hand to bounce back their Evil Swarm monster so that I can start summoning like I want. I can get my normal plays, my Sword Soul normal plays, go into Barone to check for the Nibiru, summon the Apple Dragon, summon Taya to banish Yugioh, to go into Dragite, because I know they have a spell or they have a trap on the field right now, or maybe a spell, chances are a trap. I'd rather burn Dragite's negate than Baron's, which is why I went to Dragite. So here's what I did. I went to Chang Ying, since going second, Chang Ying's really good. He obviously has a bunch of attack. But I used Ashuna to summon out Vishuda and 100 Apples Token Dragon. So I could then use, so I had to banish the Ashuna so that I could use Chang Ying's effect, so I could banish whatever card it was on the field and a card in their grave. And then I could Sacred Summit into Adhara to go into a level 10. So I was locked into worms there. I could have went into a Chao Fang, but that would have been kind of useless because it wouldn't have had any lock because I wouldn't have used a Yang Zing. So instead, I was like, screw it, let's get an Adhara out here on the field. and I just used Sacred Summit for that, because if you control a Synchro monster, you can summon a worm instead of a Sword Soul card. So summon out the Adhara, and then I got a 10 right there. And then it's like, even if you somehow survived, you're not breaking this board. You're just not. You have an Omni negate, a Spell and Trap negate, 2 normal banish, a banish Spell and Trap, banish of a monster, and then when a card is banished, a banish of any card on the field and in the grave. Plus, he's lowering the attack of all the opponent's monsters by 800 while raising himself by 800, and he's basically indestructible. That literally, the outs to Sword Soul are Dark Ruler no more. Like, the outs to this board is Dark Ruler no more. Even with, like I've said before, even with Raw Sphere mode, 3 tributes, you're still leaving a negate on the field, or some sort of interruption on the field, or even just a big boss monster with being Chang Ying, because he's just a big boy. He's basically indestructible. You can banish the hell out of your stuff. Like, Chang Ying's really good. People underestimate Chang Ying. Now that Danglong, Banlist just hit. Now that Danglong's out, you can throw Danglong in here, and you can very easily get an Omni Negate counter trap with Danglong, and then Dark Ruler isn't even out. Even Dark Ruler doesn't work. Alright, here's another test hand. Pretty wild hand again, almost nothing but gas. I'd rather have the Ashuna instead of the Adhara, but again, extremely gassy. Basically, this hand belongs to planet Jupiter. It's that gassy. Alright, so what I normally do is do my 10E plays first to get my monk on board before I commit to things like normal summoning. In this case, it'd be normal summoning Virtuous, Ecclesia the Virtuous, to summon out Mo Yi. But instead of doing that, I can just at least get my monk on board so my 10E plays are live. Normal summon the Ecclesia, then go into tribute for the Mo Yi. Show one of my cards, probably the Long Yuan. Summon the Apple Dragon, go into Yugioh, get my search and draw. So I summon Chaos Angel with a light monster, no dark. There is an easy way to get dark monsters, a dark monster and a light monster as well. And that would be, instead of Yugioh, you go into Berserker. Let's say you don't have a very good hand and you just want to have a big boss monster, then that would be a way of doing that. But right now, instead, what I did was I went to Yugioh and I used Apple Dragon to go into Chaos Angel, so all my synchros are no longer affected by my opponent's monster effects. Banish the Apple Dragon to get my level 2 tuner. I go Sword Soul Emergence. Pitch the Ashuna to summon a token to go into Baron. Banish Ashuna to summon Vishuda. So I use Vishuda and Monk to go into Shaman. Banish Adhara to go into... Banish Adhara to get Ashuna back. Use Monk's effect to pitch Ashuna to summon out the Long Yuan again to get out my Draco Berserker. Then I wanted to go absolutely insano mode. This is me not conserving anything. Like, I'm like all gas, no brakes. I am not conserving any little bit of my hand. I am full commit, full send to this board. So, I have Shaman. My monsters are unaffected by my opponent's monster effects, my Synchro monsters. I have a Banish. I have a Monster Negate, and I have an Omni Negate, and I have a Sword Soul Blackout. That is an absolutely saucy board. That is a wild board for Sword Soul. Before Apple Dragon, this board was not possible. You could do 3 Synchros with Tenyis in your hand. So if you had a Shuna and any other Tenyi, you could get 3 Synchros out in one turn. Generally be 2 level 8s and a level 10. So probably like Barone, Yugioh, Berserker. Now with Apple Dragon, you can with a lot more ease get out 3 Synchro monsters, and quite often if you want to use your entire hand, and I don't necessarily suggest that, because you could just save a card in your hand for follow-up, because 4 is kind of excessive, especially when Dark Ruler exists. But if you really just want to go whole hog it, like let's say you want to go first game, maybe your opponent doesn't main Dark Ruler, and you just want to go screw it, I'm making the hugest board I possibly can. Ringowurm allows you to do that and make 4 very powerful Synchro monsters. That was not possible before Ringowurm. So a lot of people argue about the consistency problems with Apple Dragon, but I feel like its consistency is nearly the same, because all I did was replace a few hand traps. So I was running 12 to 13 hand traps prior to this, and I replaced about 4 of those with 2 Small Worlds and 2 Apple Dragons. So realistically, my consistency did not go up or down. My interruptions on my opponent's turns did, but I still had the same amount of worms or Soul Soul cards as my 2 card combos as I always have. So this essentially made my going first hands far more powerful than they were before. The negative of that is I lost some hand traps, so I'm not as interactive on my opponent's turn if I'm going second. But if you're just siding, you can just side out your Apple Dragons, you can side out your Small Worlds for your hand traps. You can just have your hand traps on the side. So I don't see the argument for not running at least 2 Apple Dragons. You don't have to run the Small World package, but 2 Small Worlds gets you like literally anything you want in this deck. I've shown before in another video, you can just grab the Lightning Kaiju like it's nothing, almost off any other card. So like, it makes no sense not to do it to me, but the more power to you. Like, more power to you. If you like pure Tenyi Sword Soul, that's Gucci, man. Whatever, it's all good. The Banlist just came out. We're doing good. We did not get hit. We actually increased in power. I'm gonna have to start working with Danglong to see if there's anything you can do. I know you can set up, like I said before, the Omni Negate counter trap with Danglong, but I don't know if that's powerful enough to warrant running it. So definitely, I know a lot of people are gonna be labbing this. I'm gonna be labbing this, and we'll see if Danglong's worth running in Sword Soul without Halka Fibrax. So, alright guys, I hope you learned something. I hope you saw a few combos that you really enjoyed. I've just been labbing it up a little bit with Sword Soul in Yu-Gi-Oh! Omega or Yugioh Omega. Having a whole bunch of fun with it. I know the ban list just dropped, so honestly, I think tier was bumped up, I think Sword Soul was bumped up a tier since Cash took a hit. Not a terrible hit, but like Cash took a hit, Sprite took a very small hit, and Naturia Runic took a hit. The 2 decks that I play, Lab and Sword Soul, took no hits whatsoever, and Sword Soul actually gained Danglong, which could potentially open up for a whole bunch of different combos. I don't know what those are yet. I haven't tested with him. I actually haven't used Danglong at all. I mean, he was banned before I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh. So we'll see. I mean, maybe some Danglong Spice is in there. But anyway, if you guys learned anything, if you saw a combo that was awesome, if you think Ringowurm's cool, like and subscribe, please. I really need that help, and I want to get to 100 subscribers. I'd really appreciate it, and I'll be bringing you a lot more content like this. Just comment if you want to see anything else, if you want to see other decks, if you want to see other if you want to see more replays, if you want to see like me at my locals or me at my normal like venue where I meet my buddies in real life to play, I'd be happy to show you those games. I actually was kind of planning on that anyway. But if there's anything you guys want to see, leave them in the comments, or if you just want to say, hey man, I appreciate the videos, leave it down there. I appreciate your views. Yeah, I guess that's it. I'll be back with more SWORDSOUL. I'll be back with more Labyrinth. Also, I might be planning on building a deck about prehistoric beast, if you catch my drift. So I'm probably gonna have some deck lists on that. I'm pretty fluent in Cyber Dragon as well, so maybe even some Zombie World. So there's plenty of decks to come. If you like any of those decks, or if you want to suggest any decks in the future, like I said, like and subscribe, leave a comment. I'd really appreciate it. Talk to you guys later.